Hey guys, David here and welcome to another video. Once more, a suspiciously shaped brown box in front of me and small hints. Now before I get into this box and start ripping stuff open, full disclaimer, Atomstack did send this laser to me. I guess I just gave away what's in this package. Well, you knew anyhow because you read the title. But they did not pay me in any way to make a positive review or anything. I'll give you my honest opinion on this machine and compare it to the Ortur machines that I've used before. I find it kind of interesting. You can almost draw parallels between Ortur and Creality. They both kind of started bringing on a hit like the Creality 010. When it came out, it was revolutionary. It was like a great printer at a great price that just worked. And same thing with the Ortur Lasermaster. And then just 2-3 months later, every brand was making printers that looked almost exactly like it. And this laser is no different. It looks very similar to the Ortur Lasermaster, but it does have a few features that, at least on paper, might give it an ace up its sleeve and make it a much more capable machine than the Ortur. So I'm very excited to take it out of the box, take a look at it, test it, and see if the claims that they make are true. Nice looking manual. USB cable, got a bunch of those. Ooh, it's kind of purple. Fancy. We have the laser module. Now, interestingly enough, on this laser module, on the module itself, it also says the same 40 watts that it says in the product title, which if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that this laser is not 40 watts. It might have 40 watts of power consumption, but it definitely is not outputting 40 watts of laser power. Atomstack, to their full credit, while in the title they are writing 40 watts, I really can't blame them if they were writing the actual wattage in the title. Nobody would buy the product because it would look super weak compared to all the other ones. But inside of the product description, they do have the actual wattage listed of this laser module, or at least very close to it. I don't have the equipment to test it, but I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but I believe it was something around like 5 watts or something like that. And I actually do believe that wattage, that is probably the wattage actually of the output of the laser diode inside. And in no particular order, looks like a bunch of little accessories and test pieces. I'll open that one up later. A little cleaning brush, electronics in an actually fairly nice enclosure. Everything seems to have this like anodizing to it that is like slightly purple, and while it's an interesting color choice, I like it. It's very consistent and it's different. It's not black or silver like every other machine out there. And it comes with the wire harness already pre-done. Nice. Fairly standard power brick power cord. That's the wrong plug, of course. Like everybody, even local sellers cannot manage to ship the right plug. Laser protective goggles, really important. Now it is a fixed focus laser, meaning that you adjust the focus by moving the laser up and down, and I believe it is focused in a way where it basically you cannot see the laser beam itself, but still always wear laser goggles when working with lasers. These things can seriously injure you and blind you if you get really unlucky. Bunch of little plates. Really nice packaging, by the way. Now, I of course don't really like this foam. It's great packaging, it keeps everything safe, but it cannot be recycled, and it's a huge block that just has to be thrown in the landfill basically. So cardboard would be nicer, but this protects everything beautifully and nothing gets scratched in shipping. So the extrusions, and they're actually fairly heavy. They do contain more metal than most 2020 aluminum extrusions. That's quite nice to see. They feel really high quality. And they also have a little ruler on that is gonna maybe help you position the workpiece. More of a gimmick in my opinion, but they do feel very nice and solid. And I'm happy to see that the gantry is already mostly pre-assembled. That's gonna make it a lot easier to assemble, and yeah. Even got their logo still straight on there, and it's very high quality, just like the measurements on there. So far, manufacturing quality, very, very good. Alright guys, so half an hour later, that's including talking to you, everything is assembled, went together very nicely. The instructions are actually really good. You can really tell that Atomstack has already quite a few products out there and some experience. Everything went together really well, and I really like how they did not make you use the little T-nuts to attach these profiles, but actually have tapped holes in here that made everything a lot less fiddly. The only kind of thing I can complain about and nitpick a bit is the way that the belts are mounted. It's just with a T-knot and a screw pushing down on the belt, which kind of twists the belt a little bit when tightening the screw, which is not ideal, but it's also not a big deal, and it works. Apart from that, while one could ask for like drag chains for the cables to have those managed a bit nicely, I think that's kind of too much to ask at this price point, so I am very happy with this turned out. Also, quite impressive how everything is fully metal. There are no acrylic parts anywhere apart from the little shield. I'll show you the other side in a second, which is really nice compared to the Ortur that uses acrylic plates on the side instead of these stamped or laser cut aluminum plates. It feels very solid. Also uses double wide rails on the ends. So build quality wise, top notch. And I think now it's time for me to play around with this a bit in software, do some test cuts, and then I'll come back to you with a verdict and show you how this machine actually performs. And I'm back, and wait, what's that? Wasn't there just one laser here earlier? What is this one doing here? Well, as it turns out, just before I was gonna start testing on the Atomstack A5 Pro, this thing showed up in the mail as well. And upon opening it, I kind of almost felt like I had déjà vu. I mean, you see them in front of you. They are remarkably similar. What this laser is, it is a Sculfun S6, and while Sculpfun and Atomstack, they are not the same company, but I mean, at least I don't think so. Looking at these two lasers, they definitely came out of the same factory. There are a lot of small details that are different, but they are different in a way like you asking a friend to copy the homework and him telling you, hey, just change it up a bit. That's what this machine is compared to the Atomstack. It really feels like this should also be an Atomstack product and just a slightly lower tiered one. Maybe that one should be the A5 Pro and this one should just be the A5. But Atomstack does have an A5, which is a different machine than this one. But never mind. Assembly of this thing, I didn't even bother filming it. It was basically this one, except in teal instead of purple. Everything else is the same. Now there are some small differences, as I've mentioned. For example, it's only using one rail in a single rail instead of a double rail. Also, the extrusion of the Atomstack is slightly heavier than the extrusion of this one. The laser mounts slightly differently, but apart from that, also like the electronics box here, which is the same box with the same label. This one has a switch, the other one doesn't. for some reason. This one's in the front, the other one is in the back. But even down to the manual, like, these two manuals look remarkably similar. With the main difference being that the Atomstack has a few more languages, but apart from that, it's basically the same. Now this one is also slightly lower wattage. Now the marketed title wattage, I'm just gonna refer to it, on the Atomstack is 40 watts compared to 30 watts on the Sculpfun, compared to 20 watts on the Ortur Lasermaster 2. That's the maximum tier of that one. And while those are the like title wattages, I looked into the description of all of them, and even though Ortur one updated it, they are no longer claiming that this is the actual laser output power, but didn't improve any. Ortur is claiming that their laser output is between 4.5 and 5.5 watts on the 20 watt laser. Sculpfun is claiming that the output is around 5.5 to 6 watts, while Atomstack is claiming that their output is about 5 to 5.5 watts. These all sound remarkably similar, especially considering that the title wattage is a full doubling in wattage. And let me quickly tell you that although this one claims to be higher output laser power, it is not. It definitely is not. The 30 to 40 is much more how the correlation works, just maybe 5 and 4 or something like that, or 3.5. I don't know, I should really invest in a laser power meter. I should look up how much they cost. That would be quite interesting to see how much power these guys actually output. Also, funny enough, the controller that all these three laser diodes are using is exactly the same. Like one for one, part for part, the PCB is the same. But the cooling and the laser itself is not. These are both using a fixed focus system and have a really convenient system for focusing. That is one of the big advantages over the Lasermaster, where you just kind of have to dial the knob until you think it's in focus. Here you don't have to think anything. The Atomstack, you just use the little acrylic part that is included to set the bottom of the shroud here 2 millimeters above your workpiece. That, while that might not be exactly 100% precise, it is very easy to do, and especially for beginners, that way you can actually focus your laser, be fairly certain that it is within a good range. On this one, there's just a little aluminum cube that lets you space the metal housing here 20 millimeters above the workpiece. Doesn't really matter. It also has a shield included that blocks the light while cutting, which is quite nice. While you should still be wearing laser goggles while operating the machine, if somebody else walks into the room, they're not immediately going to look at a bright laser, but are going to be kind of protected. Now also, the cooling fan of the laser on both of these does exhaust the air downwards and is in almost a little bit of a way kind of an air assist, but does not have anywhere near enough power. Also, with these plexiglass sheets, it is harder for the smoke to go somewhere. Just a 2 millimeter gap in the bottom, you can see the smoke exhausting on the side, but looking at the wood pieces that I've tried cutting, there is some noticeable smoke marks there. So adding a proper air assist would definitely be an upgrade that would be worth doing to these, just for cleaner cuts, even if it's not for performance improvement. Another thing of the usability, software-wise, well, just like all the other machines, they're also using laser Gerbil, or optionally, you can also use Lightburn. Now, for this review, I decided to use laser Gerbil, as if you're only spending like $200 on a laser, it's highly unlikely that you'll start off with a $40 software investment if there's a free option that is almost as good. Also, on a fun side note, I figured out that I've been lying to you in my previous laser videos and even my laser software comparison video. Laser Gerbil does support material profiles and actually has default profiles for the Atomstack integrated and the entire range of Ortur machines, which is quite nice. I used all of those profiles as kind of a baseline to work off of. For engraving, these profiles work perfectly for both machines, and for cutting I had to do some tweaking anyhow. But And another thing is there is actually this little small counter that you can use to do multiple passes right after each other inside of Laser Gripple without having to click start multiple times. Now it still doesn't give you any controls over Z-axis or anything like that, which these machines don't have anyhow, but it is much more convenient than having to click play 3 times to do something with 3 layers. And with that, I think it's time to talk about performance. I've already somewhat hinted at it, and for engraving, both of these machines do a great job. You can engrave on wood at 3000 millimeters a second, no problem. Don't even need the full laser power on either of them. And you could go faster, but that's not really going to be actually applicable anymore, just because of the slowing down and everything. For the kind of wood that I use, I settled on 60% power on the Atomstack and 70% power for engraving on the Sculfun. Also with dithering you can get really nice results. You can see this character here that I engraved, which is kind of a good representation of if you want to do a portrait. It looks very clean and took only about 20 minutes, and there's no really noticeable difference between the two. Now if you move on to trying to cut that wood, then these two very similar machines become very different machines. The Atomstack does a pretty good job at cutting 3mm plywood. The suggested profile is 450 millimeters a minute with 3 passes, but that's for 2.5mm plywood. I found that 400 millimeters a minute at 3 passes worked great. It gives really clean cuts, works beautifully, very reliable. Can definitely recommend for the 3mm plywood. And you could probably, by adding a pass, easily go to 4mm plywood and have no issues at all. I haven't tried anything above that, but I imagine that you can cut most thin plywood with the Atomstack quite fine. Now at some point you'll definitely need an air assist. If you want to cut anything above 4mm, you need an air assist. You can check out previous videos of mine if you want to see more data on that. Now on this machine here, well, to put it shortly, you're not going to be doing much cutting. It is possible with 3 passes at 250 millimeters a minute. I was almost through usually. Put that to like 4 passes at 270 or something like that, and you'll be fine. But it's not really that enjoyable, and the cut is not as nice at all. There you can really just notice that the laser power is not quite up to par. Also, what is noticeable, the same problem as with every single diode laser that I've ever tested, and they vary slightly, and that problem is that the laser spot is not a dot. They like to make you believe that if you focus it on a point, but you do not. You focus it on a line. And what that means that if you have a line and then you cut a square, you cut it like that, up and down, on the y-axis, you have a very thin line. But if you then move on the x-axis, you have a much, much wider line. And that is even noticeable in simple stuff like engraving. Not as much in wood as there you have the grain, but if you go to different materials, you can see it. I measured the width on leather engraving, where it's a bit easier to see, which by the way works great, so definitely can recommend. The y direction of the engraving line is about 0.5 millimeters and the x direction is 0.2 millimeters. That is a quite significant difference. And you will also notice that in cutting, that you will already be cut through in y direction while still struggling in the x direction. That is noticeable on wood and every single other material. Even simple stuff like cutting vinyl on the y direction works very fast and quickly, but the x direction you need almost twice as much power to actually cut through. I am actually a bit disappointed in the Atomstack in this category, as one of the main reasons why I was excited to try this is that they claim in the product description that they have greatly improved this characteristic thanks to their lens. And by just kind of looking at the out of focus laser spot, this by far is the one that looks the closest to square. But the actual focused one and cutting, there is no difference between these two in this category. and I wouldn't say that they're any noticeably better than the Ortur. So far, the only diode laser that I actually had better results with that is the endurance laser, but that's a whole different price class. And even there, it still is far from perfect. That is just a characteristic of diode lasers, and I kind of doubt that we're ever going to get over that. If you want a more round spot, get a CO2 laser. But enough of that. I already mentioned leather. Engraving leather works great. You don't need a lot of power. It works basically the same on both of these. I was running at like 1000 to 1500 millimeters a minute at like 20 to 30% power. So very nicely. And if your design is not too intricate and that slight difference in width does not bother you, engraving leather works great with these two. I tried it on some light leather where you can see it better. I also tried it on this phone case, and I even put my own phone under there without even removing the phone and engraved my logo into it, and it looks just great. Now, this is actual leather, while these phone cases are fake leather. So on these ones, I put the power down even less, and they smell horrible. Leather smells horrible. With plastic, you gotta really make sure that some of them do produce some toxic smoke that you definitely do not want to inhale. And with these kind of open frames, the smoke will be everywhere. For wood, that just kind of smells like you have a campfire, and you better have an open window, otherwise you're gonna smell like a campfire. But for other materials like plastic, it really starts to be like put it next to the window, leave the room kind of thing. It's just not ideal. You can see this box next to me, or you can't, I'm not sure. That's where my Ortur Lasermaster is living, with the endurance laser mounted on it, and it has a duct that I can put outside of the window, so to exhaust all the smoke out. And long term, to me, that is the only way I would use a laser. I would not use this laser like that inside. Maybe if you're in the garage, you can open the garage door, have it basically outside, and it's a nice day, sure, you can live with that. But for indoor use, you kind of have to build an enclosure. Now, leave a like and a comment down below if you want me to do another crack at maybe an even simpler enclosure that you can build as well. I've had a bunch of requests on this enclosure if I was selling them or anything, but the problem is just it's big and heavy, impossible to ship, so can't really sell those. But moving on, I'd also tried cutting dark leather, and sort of possible with a lot of passes on the Atomstack. The thing with cutting leather is if you heat it too much in one spot, it will kind of shrink together and crumple up, and then you lost. So I tried 800 millimeters a minute with just as many passes as it took, and after like 8 passes I was mostly through, but the cut was not particularly nice. Just the laser spot being so wide really did not help it. And what you might also be interested in cutting is acrylics, and since these are both diode lasers, which are blue lasers, they cannot cut clear acrylic. Just straight up impossible. The light goes through as if nothing happened. But dark acrylic, red acrylic, stuff like that works great. I mean, you are using red acrylic to block the laser light, so it clearly is absorbed. And with acrylics, once again, the laser spot being so wide makes it really not ideal. But it is possible. I tried this here. This one is basically through. This is 3 passes at 300 millimeters a minute, and if I did maybe a 4th pass, it would definitely be through. So that can work, but the cut is not too nice. Another thing you want to do is maybe instead of having it flat on a piece of metal, have it on a grate, so that the smoke and any goo or liquid stuff can exit out the bottom and be out of the way. I kind of noticed some like different dirt and smeared all over the plate on the bottom that I was using. So just giving it a place to go in the bottom might also increase your chances. So I think I've rambled enough. Conclusion time. If you're engraving, then you just want to like engrave wood, some leather. There really is no big difference between these two machines. I mean, This one, the Atomstack, is slightly nicer, has like slightly nicer profiles, actually has feet that don't scratch the table, stuff like that. But really, realistically, price-wise, this one I was able to find it around $250. The Atomstack at like $330. Now these prices, of course, are going to fluctuate, but that's like 80 bucks less. So I would definitely go with the Sculfun for just engraving. If you want to do any sort of cutting, however, get the Atomstack for sure. Much better for cutting, and will definitely be worth the extra 80 bucks. Now, at the moment, the Ortur Lasermaster slots in right about in the middle between these two. The Lasermaster does not have a lot of advantages over either of these two machines. Power-wise, it is very similar to the Sculpfun, definitely not on the same level as the Atomstack. I don't have any exact numbers, but they are claiming less wattage, and there definitely is also less wattage, even on the highest end model. If you're looking at the Lasermaster versus the Sculpfun, I don't really see a reason to go with the Lasermaster. Now, one nice thing about the Lasermaster is that it has a really big community around it, and you'll easily find a lot of information about it if anything goes wrong. But the build quality on this machine is better, and it has, in my opinion, much easier focusing system that is just gonna get you started better, and Ortur better step up the game. So with that, I believe we are at the end of this video. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, so you don't miss any future videos. And maybe I'll do more about these two machines, compare it to even more lasers out there. Be my guest, write a comment down below. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and until next time.